Hello, my name is David Cooperman. I run business development for the Americas for Complidata. I also look after our global partnerships. So I think there's two issues. One is what the process actually is, and then the second would be how technology has been leveraged against those processes. In terms of the actual processes, there's just a lot more that's done today than there used to be. It's gotten much more complicated and complex, and the regulator expectations have gotten just increasingly more complex over time as the regulators have looked to the banks to help them solve some of these financial crime issues. In terms of the use of technology, I think if I were to turn back the clock, 15, 20 years ago, there wasn't much in the way of technology support. Very manual. It was really not a scalable operations process. It was a lot of, reviewing paperwork, using highlighters to find names and transactions that would then be keyed into a automated sanction screening engine. But the actual finding of the names to screen and the physical typing of it into a system was all done manually. And compliance, the same thing. You might have a checklist of different things that you had to cover. It required a lot of very experienced experts in your trade finance operations area to know what to look for and to do that work. If I fast forward to now, you still have, again, you have a higher expectation in a more complex set of processes that you need to do. But banks are starting to leverage technology to do some of the tasks that are involved in sanctions and compliance. And so there are systems available, there's techniques available that can automate a lot of that. You still have to have a human in the loop to ultimately make the decisions around whether the risk in a transaction is appropriate or not for the bank. But you can leverage technology so that you can have your seasoned experts focus on some of the more complex transactions, or that they can be more efficient and more effective in the work that they do every day. And it can also be used as a tool to help develop new talent, because the new talent can be guided by the system, which can highlight to them what types of risks they should be looking for, how they can find certain types of risks, and why those risks should be something that needs to be looked into further. Most importantly, I think what these systems can do is to help banks make more effective risk decisions. And I'm talking about financial crime risk. One of the big challenges the banks have, they set the bar too high. What ends up happening is there's too many false positives. And when there is a false positive, that means a lot of time and effort need to be done to clear that false positive, and a customer could be impacted in terms of turnaround time. So if you can reduce the false positives without impacting the quality overall, you can actually get a more satisfied customer, faster transaction time, less effort required to ultimately get to the same risk decision. So in terms of compliance blind spots, I would say it's actually the human element to it. So, human beings are not perfect. They can be overworked, they can be stressed, they can need additional training or additional knowledge or experience. They can have a bad day. They can be out sick. They can be on vacation. So there's lots of different elements here. And in compliance and sanctions in particular, you have to be very consistent and thoughtful and diligent. And you really have to be, you have to have an awful lot of knowledge, but it has to be applied to every single transaction in the same exact way. So that if you did the transaction review or I did the transaction review, we both come up with the same result, regardless of what that result is. And just by human nature, we do have, we are impacted by the things I mentioned, at the beginning. And a computer model, if it's done correctly, is always going to be this. It should always be the same outcome. It should be replicatable. It should be transparent, and it should be something which, is going to be consistent over time. Well, it's no surprise, but tariffs has come up in every single presentation and every single conversation. I think if we look back last year, I wasn't here, but if I were here, I don't think the word tariff would have come up much. And it's certainly a topic of much discussion because of the current geopolitical issues going on right now.